Clark Gable died not too long after the Misfits was made.
Right at the end.
And I think one of those old ladies who used to chastise Hollywood constantly thought that your film killed him.
You can plan every frame of a film, the costumes, the lighting, even the way a character blinks, but the truth is, once the cameras start rolling, Hollywood becomes a living organism. It breathes, it breaks down, and sometimes it mutates. And when it mutates, you get one of the strangest creatures in all of movie history, the mid-shoot recast. These are the stories from the golden age, when studios ran the world, egos filled sound stages, and a single phone call could erase weeks of work. So let's step back into the flickering glamour of old Hollywood, where behind every perfect close-up, there might be another actor's ghost still lingering in the edit. 1. Judy Garland and the vanishing star of Valley of the Dolls, 1967. It's 1967. The champagne has gone flat, the eyeliner is thicker than the script, and Judy Garland, once America's sweetheart, has walked onto a set that feels more like a battlefield. Garland had signed on to play Helen Lawson, an aging diva whose career was fading fast. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. It was art imitating life maybe a little too closely. The studio expected magic. Instead, they got mayhem. Garland clashed with director Mark Robson, showing up late, sometimes not at all, and bristling at his demands for retakes. Crew members whispered that she was tired, fragile, and done being treated like a prop. One morning, after just a few scenes, Judy walked off set. The cameras stopped. Her chair sat empty for 3 days before the studio finally called in. Susan Hayward, red-haired, no nonsense, and ready to work. When Hayward filmed her first scene, the crew reportedly applauded not out of disrespect, but relief. And when the film finally hit theaters, it became a bizarre blend of tragedy and camp, remembered as much for Garland's ghostly absence as for Hayward's powerhouse presence.
I don't think any actress could get a better role. I think there's a good chance to sing one song, and yet I don't have to depend upon singing. I like to act too, so I think it's going to be good. I hope I'm good in it.
2. Marilyn Monroe and Something's Got to Give, 1962. Some recasts never get to finish their story. In 1962, 20th Century Fox thought they had their next big hit, a lighthearted comedy about a mischievous wife who fakes her own death. But Something's Got to Give became a cinematic autopsy of Monroe's life in real time. She was chronically ill, often late, and increasingly anxious. Her co-star Dean Martin adored her, but couldn't keep the production together. After weeks of delays and missed call times, the studio fired Monroe mid-shoot, replacing her with Doris Day and restarting the movie entirely. But here's the twist. Monroe had just filmed one of the most daring scenes in Hollywood history, swimming nude in the pool. The studio leaked stills of the moment to drum up publicity, and the world went wild. Sadly, Monroe died only months later. The footage, half finished, half legend, would be rediscovered decades later, proof that even in chaos, she was magnetic.
503. 504.
3. Cleopatra, 1963, the recast that nearly bankrupted Hollywood. If there's a Mount Olympus of behind-the-scenes disasters, Cleopatra sits right on top. Originally, the movie was meant to star Joan Collins, fresh off her contract with Fox. The sets were built, the extras hired, and then, in true Hollywood fashion, everything changed. The studio wanted more star power. They wanted Elizabeth Taylor. When Taylor finally agreed, it came with a list of demands: the biggest paycheck in film history, her own wardrobe budget, and, as it turned out, an unplanned medical leave that would shut down filming for months. Fox moved production from London to Rome, rebuilt everything, and reshot almost every scene. Richard Burton was brought in to replace Stephen Boyd halfway through, turning the movie's political drama into one of cinema's most scandalous love stories. By the time Cleopatra wrapped, it had cost $44 million, enough to nearly sink the studio. But somehow, through the smoke and glitter, Taylor and Burton turned it into a sensation.
The world premiere of Cleopatra in New York, the biggest and most publicized Broadway has ever known. And is that surprising? It's the most talked about and the most expensive film ever made.
4. The Tin Man Who Couldn't Breathe, The Wizard of Oz, 1939. You know him as the cheerful, silvery friend who rusted in the rain, but the original Tin Man almost died for the part. Buddy Ebsen, later famous as Jed Clampett, was the first actor cast. He'd filmed 2 weeks' worth of material, danced, sang, and charmed the crew. Then he collapsed. His body had absorbed the aluminum dust in his makeup. It coated his lungs. Ebsen woke up in the hospital, coughing blood, with doctors warning him never to go near metallic paint again. MGM quietly replaced him with Jack Haley, reformulated the makeup, and kept filming. But Ebsen's voice remains in the film, buried in the ensemble chorus of "We're Off to See the Wizard." Somewhere in that melody, the ghost of the first Tin Man still sings.
Using such harsh substances as part of his costume caused Buddy severe lung damage, which later developed into lifelong respiratory problems.
5. Ben-Hur, 1959, when a stuntman became a star. It's rare that a recast happens without anyone noticing, but in Ben-Hur, it literally took place mid-scene. Charlton Heston, the star of the film, was filming the chariot race, the most expensive action sequence ever attempted at the time. But one wrong turn sent his stunt double, Joe Knut, flying over the chariot and crashing into the sand. The director froze, certain the man had been killed. Instead, Knut stood up, dusted himself off, and yelled, "Did you get the shot?" They did. That footage, meant to be replaced with safer reshoots, was too good to cut. The studio kept it, and for decades, audiences assumed it was Heston himself surviving that death-defying moment. Sometimes, Hollywood's best recasts happen in a single frame. 6. Jean Harlow's ghost in Saratoga, 1937. When Jean Harlow died unexpectedly of kidney failure midway through filming Saratoga, MGM panicked. The movie was nearly complete, but missing key dialogue scenes. The studio considered shelving it entirely until they realized they had a goldmine. Harlow's final film would be her legacy. They hired body doubles, shot from behind, used old footage, and even dubbed her voice with another actress. The result? A patchwork performance that still earned millions. Audiences wept. Some refused to believe she was gone. And somewhere between frames, MGM realized they'd invented a new kind of magic, the cinematic resurrection.
Demanded that the studio complete and release with Jean Harlow has been finished. Through ingenious camera work by Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer's ace photographers and the determination of the producers to make this, Miss Harlow's last picture, her finest, a great production awaits your approval.
7. My Fair Lady, 1964, The Battle for Eliza Doolittle. Audrey Hepburn was America's darling, but to many theater fans, she wasn't Eliza Doolittle. Julie Andrews originated the role on Broadway, and she wanted to reprise it for the film, but the studio, chasing Oscars, chose Hepburn. Then, halfway through filming, disaster struck. Hepburn's singing voice wasn't working. They brought in Marni Nixon to dub her entire performance. Hepburn was furious, feeling betrayed and embarrassed. For a while, the studio even considered scrapping her scenes and refilming with Andrews. They didn't, but karma came swiftly. Andrews won an Oscar that same year for Mary Poppins. Sometimes Hollywood doesn't need to recast it, just lets time handle the revenge.
The winner is Julie Andrews.
8. The Misfits, 1961. When the whole cast fell apart, Clark Gable, Marilyn Monroe, Montgomery Clift. 3 icons, one cursed production. By the time the Misfits started filming in the Nevada desert, Gable was 59 and exhausted, Monroe was in rehab between takes, and Clift was still recovering from a disfiguring car crash. Director John Huston gambled during shooting breaks, literally, and spent studio funds at the tables. The stress was unbearable, and after production wrapped, Gable suffered a heart attack and died. Monroe died a year later. The film became a haunting time capsule, a record of Hollywood's last gasp before the old system crumbled. In a grim sense, it was the recast that never happened because death got there first.
Clark Gable died not too long after The Misfits was made.
Right at the end.
And I think one of those old ladies who used to chastise Hollywood constantly thought that your film killed him.
9. Spartacus, 1960. Kirk Douglas's power play. Kirk Douglas wasn't recast, he did the recasting. Halfway through filming, he fired director Anthony Mann, unhappy with the tone, and brought in Stanley Kubrick, a young filmmaker barely in his 30s. Douglas wanted more realism, more rebellion, and frankly, more of himself in every frame. Kubrick rewrote scenes, added close-ups, and shifted the focus entirely. Technically, the director was replaced, not the actor, but the film's DNA changed mid-production so drastically that even the extras said, "We're making a different movie now." And that's the kind of recast that only happens when the star runs the kingdom.
Antoninus, the night passes slowly, doesn't it?
10. Gone with the Wind, 1939. The Search for Scarlett O'Hara. Sometimes the recast isn't mid-filming, it's mid-audition for months. David O. Selznick auditioned 1,400 women for Scarlett O'Hara. The studio had already started building sets and filming the burning of Atlanta sequence before the role was even cast. Then, in a twist of fate, Vivien Leigh appeared literally walking into the firelight of that massive burning set. Selznick reportedly turned to his brother and said, "Meet Scarlett O'Hara." It wasn't just casting, it was a prophecy. Leigh's performance won an Oscar, but her fragile mental health would shadow her for the rest of her career. Sometimes getting the role means never escaping it. '11. The Ten Commandments. 1956. The Forgotten Moses. Before Charlton Heston descended from Mount Sinai with the tablets, there was another Moses, William Boyd. Boyd had been DeMille's first choice in the 1920s silent version, and when DeMille revived the epic decades later, Boyd wanted the part again. But DeMille refused because he thought Boyd's Hop-Along Cassidy fame would distract audiences. Heston stepped in mid-pre-production, giving the film its granite-jawed gravitas. Boyd reportedly attended the premiere anyway, smiling through clenched teeth. Hollywood can turn prophets into footnotes overnight.
The evil star foretold him as the destroyer of Egypt and deliverer of slaves.
12. The Outlaw Josie Wales, 1976. It's the mid-70s, and Clint Eastwood is wearing two hats, star and producer. When director Philip Kaufman clashed with him over pacing, Eastwood quietly fired him midway through production and took over behind the camera. Kaufman filed a complaint with the Directors Guild, leading to the Eastwood Rule, which forbids an actor-producer from firing a director without studio approval. Eastwood's version became a Western classic. Kaufman's career recovered with The Right Stuff, and Hollywood learned if you're going to fire someone mid-film, at least make it worth the lawsuit.
Clint Eastwood is known for being a Hollywood legend. But did you know he once caused such a massive shakeup on set that it led to a brand new Hollywood rule?
13. Rebel Without a Cause, 1955. The Ghost of James Dean. James Dean's death came just weeks before the premiere, but production had already wrapped. Still, Warner Brothers secretly filmed extra pickup shots using Dean's stand-in, Nick Adams, just to fill gaps. It's subtle, a different angle here, a shadow there, but it's Hollywood's quiet way of mourning. The movie became a posthumous anthem for youth. In a cruel twist, every time Dean's stand-in appeared, fans thought it was just a bad angle, never realizing the real star was already gone.
He's always a lovely boy.
Grandmother, you tell one more lie, and you're going to get turned to stone.
14. Mutiny on the Bounty, 1962. A set so cursed it turned paradise into purgatory. Marlon Brando's behavior on location in Tahiti was so erratic that MGM replaced entire departments' mid-shoot camera crews, writers, and nearly the director himself. His co-star Trevor Howard called him a child with a god complex. At one point, MGM considered shutting down production and recasting Brando himself until they realized no one else could sell tickets. They finished the film, barely, with Brando ad-libbing most of his dialogue. The chaos bled into every frame, making it both maddening and mesmerizing.
There'll be no more killing aboard this ship, not even Captain Bligh.
If that's an attempt to earn clemency, I spit on it.
15. Sunset Boulevard, 1950. The role that almost went to Mae West. Gloria Swanson was Norma Desmond, but she wasn't the studio's first choice. Paramount wanted Mae West, then 56, to play the fated silent star. West refused, reportedly saying, "I'm too young to play old." The studio moved on, Swanson stepped in, and history was made. It's not technically a mid-film recast, but it's the kind of close call that defines eras. Had West taken the part, Sunset Boulevard might have been camp, not tragedy.
I am big. It's the pictures that got small.
16. Breakfast at Tiffany's, 1961. The almost Marilyn moment. Before Audrey Hepburn charmed the world as Holly Golightly, the role was written for Marilyn Monroe. She was attached, signed, and excited until her acting coach told her the part was too frivolous. When Monroe pulled out, producers scrambled. Hepburn replaced her just weeks before shooting. The contrast changed everything. Marilyn would have made it sultry. Audrey made it wistful. The movie became a different kind of classic all because of one phone call.
Won't you join me?
Yes, join Audrey Hepburn as you've never seen her before.
17. North by Northwest, 1959. Cary Grant's last-minute lifeline. Alfred Hitchcock wanted James Stewart for North by Northwest, but Stewart was committed to Vertigo reshoots. So Cary Grant stepped in with only days to spare before filming began. Half the movie's charm came from Grant's bemused improvisation reactions that weren't even in the script. If Hitchcock hadn't been forced to recast, we might never have gotten one of cinema's smoothest performances. Sometimes necessity is the mother of iconic cool.
Really trying to kill my son, are you?
18. The African Queen, 1951, when a fever decided the cast. Katharine Hepburn and Humphrey Bogart made one of the greatest adventure romances ever filmed, but few know how close they came to being replaced by nature itself. Shooting in the Congo, half the crew came down with dysentery and malaria. Hepburn was bedridden for days. Bogart somehow avoided it by drinking only gin. At one point, John Huston began shooting inserts with doubles, convinced they might not survive. They did barely. And the exhaustion on screen? It wasn't acting. It was real fever, real sweat, real survival.
The fact that he went on location to Africa to make The African Queen obviously had an effect on everybody there.
19. It's a Wonderful Life, 1946. The casting chaos nobody talks about. James Stewart was always Frank Capra's first choice, but Donna Reed wasn't. Jean Arthur and Ginger Rogers both turned down the part of Mary Bailey before Reed signed on during the first week of filming. Capra later said, "We hadn't even finished lighting the house before the new Mary walked in." Reed's warmth became the movie's emotional core, a recast that turned practicality into perfection.
An angel gets his wings.
That's right. That's right.
20. The Philadelphia Story, 1940, Katharine Hepburn saves herself. Before The Philadelphia Story, Katharine Hepburn was labeled box office poison. No studio wanted her, so she bought the rights to the Broadway play, cast herself, and handpicked her co-stars James Stewart and Cary Grant mid-negotiation. It was the rare case of an actor recasting the studio itself. The movie was a smash hit, and Hepburn rose from the ashes, proving that in old Hollywood, survival wasn't luck, it was a strategy.
How dare you, any of you in this day and age, use such an idiotic...
I'm talking about the difference in mind and spirit.
21. All About Eve, 1950, The Eve Who Never Was. The irony of All About Eve is that it almost had a completely different Eve. Anne Baxter eventually became immortal as the conniving understudy who dethrones her idol. But in the early days of production, the role was meant for Jean Crane. Crane had the look and the innocence the studio wanted until director Joseph L. Mankiewicz saw her first screen tests and called them hopelessly flat. He needed sharp edges, not soft charm. So out went Crane, in came Baxter, and the dynamic between her and Bette Davis became electric acidic, witty, dangerous. Had Crane stayed, Eve might have been forgettable. Instead, the recast gave us one of the most cunning performances in film history.
That cynicism you refer to, I acquired the day I discovered I was different from little boys.
22. The Sound of Music, 1965. The Almost Captain. You know him as the stern, elegant Captain Von Trapp, but Christopher Plummer wasn't the first man in the uniform. Before he joined the project, the studio had hired Yul Brynner, yes, the King and I himself. But Brynner and Julie Andrews didn't click during rehearsals. He wanted a darker tone. She wanted warmth and humor. When the producers realized their chemistry was as chilly as the Alps, they quietly replaced him with Plummer, who brought vulnerability and a twinkle of mischief. Ironically, Plummer disliked the film for decades, calling it the sound of mucus. Yet that reluctant performance became his most beloved role.
Did I not tell you that bedtime is strictly to be observed in this house?
Yeah, you did, sir.
23. The Magnificent Seven, 1960, a Western revolt behind the camera. The first few weeks of The Magnificent Seven were chaotic. Director John Sturges had cast Sterling Hayden in the role that would later belong to Yul Brynner. Hayden even shot several early rehearsals, but he clashed with the studio over salary and script control. When Hayden walked, Brynner rode in literally on horseback and took charge of the production, demanding costume changes and script rewrites. The shift changed the film's DNA. Hayden might have played it rugged, Brynner made it mythic. Sometimes the best casting choice is the one you never planned for.
Even 5 wouldn't give us too much trouble.
There won't be any trouble if you ride on.
Ride on.
24. High Noon, 1952. The sheriff's first deputy, Gary Cooper's weary lawman, may have defined the Western hero, but his loyal deputy Harvey Pell, played by Lloyd Bridges, was originally cast with Lon Chaney Jr. Chaney's scenes were actually rehearsed, costumes fitted, and even a test reel shot. Then Cooper objected. He thought Chaney's horror movie legacy would distract audiences. The studio sided with its star, replacing Chaney within days. Bridges brought youth and arrogance, the perfect counterpoint to Cooper's aging stoicism. The result? A mentor-student dynamic that turned into one of the film's emotional anchors.
Amy.
I mean it. If you won't go with me now, I'll be on that train when it leaves here.
I've got to stay.
25, From Here to Eternity, 1953, Sinatra's miracle casting. Frank Sinatra's role as Maggio was technically a recast, and the real story sounds like a Hollywood myth. Eli Wallach had been signed, rehearsed, and paid. Then, out of nowhere, he was dropped in favor of Sinatra, who hadn't had a hit in years. Rumor has it, and the Godfather jokes practically write themselves, that Sinatra's camp convinced Columbia executives to reconsider. Whatever the truth, Sinatra's performance won him an Oscar and resurrected his career overnight. Wallach moved on, but you can still feel the what-if lingering in every frame.
And here is Frank Sinatra.
26, An American in Paris, 1951, The Missing Dancer. Gene Kelly's elegant partner in that famous ballet sequence almost wasn't Leslie Caron. Originally, the studio cast Sid Charisse dazzling, graceful, and already MGM royalty. But just before shooting, Charisse injured her knee during a rehearsal and couldn't dance for months. Kelly personally discovered Caron performing in Paris and brought her to Hollywood. Her freshness changed everything, turning what could have been another musical number into something romantic, spontaneous, and modern.
Fighting girl. She's like a sunbeam. When she walks down the street, everybody feels a little better.
27, The Big Sleep, 1946, The Vanishing Co-Star. Bogart and Bacall were Hollywood's favorite on-screen couple, but the chemistry wasn't quite working in early cuts of The Big Sleep. In the middle of post-production, Warner Brothers decided to scrap and reshoot nearly a third of the movie, and with it, they replaced supporting actress Martha Vickers in several key scenes. Her character's story was trimmed down to highlight Bacall's. What started as a side character became a ghost. Her best scenes left on the editing floor, casualties of a mid-production power shift.
You do sell books.
What do those look like? Grapefruit?
28, The African Queen's Animal Stand-ins. Yes, another African Queen entry because no film suffered more bizarre mid-shoot substitutions. Half the boat scenes were reshot after the original crocodiles and hippos, yes, real ones, became too aggressive to control. The studio flew in tamer animals from a South African preserve, effectively recasting the wildlife mid-production. It's one of the few times in Hollywood history where the supporting cast literally had to be tranquilized.
Don't be worried, Mr. Walnut.
29, Vertigo, 1958, The Lost Madeline. Hitchcock's masterpiece nearly starred someone else entirely as Madeline/Judy. Vera Miles had signed, tested, and even fitted for costumes, but when she became pregnant, production stalled. Hitchcock, impatient as ever, replaced her with Kim Novak and began filming almost immediately. That decision changed film history. Novak's hypnotic stillness gave Vertigo its eerie poetry. Miles later said she was grateful the role might have typecast her forever.
I don't want to die. There's someone inside me. She says I must die.
30, The Caine Mutiny, 1954, When Real Life Interrupted. Humphrey Bogart's Captain Queeg is iconic, but during pre-production, he wasn't the only actor tested for the part. Ronald Reagan. Yes, that Ronald Reagan was the studio's first pick. He shot early tests and read-throughs, but scheduling conflicts with other commitments led to his quiet replacement. By the time Bogart took over, the tone of the entire film shifted from straight-laced military drama to psychological study. In hindsight, Reagan's exit gave Bogart one of his final and finest performances.
Seamanship. Lieutenant Merrick was the perfect officer, but not Captain Queeg.
In classic Hollywood, recasts weren't just production choices, they were survival stories. They happened behind velvet curtains, inside smoky boardrooms, sometimes between takes. Every replacement told a story, a gamble, a tragedy, or a second chance that changed cinema forever. Because in that glittering age, one truth never changed. No matter how big the star, the show always went on. If you enjoyed this deep dive into old Hollywood's wildest behind-the-scenes stories, you will like this one as well.